Welcome to Property Box News. I'm Simon Evison. This week we're looking at the importance of having the correct licences and correct standards in place by highlighting some recent cases where landlords have been penalised. As you may remember, I have previously reported a couple of times on the controversial registration and training scheme Rent Smart Wales that came into force last November. After a rocky start, technical problems with their registration system, and it seemed insufficient personnel to enforce the new rules, the body has now prosecuted and fined 2 landlords who have not registered and taken the required training course. To comply with the new rules introduced under the Housing Act Wales 2014, landlords must register with Rent Smart Wales. Those who undertake management activity, including letting agents, must take a training course from a registered provider such as the RLA, then complete their licence application. Licences last for 5 years from the date they are granted. A Newport landlord was fined £4,400 in May for non-compliance, and this month a Gloucestershire-based landlord with several properties in Cardiff was found guilty of 21 offences, including not taking the training course, and fined £3,548 plus £457 court costs. After what the RLA described as a chaotic start, it looks like Rent Smart Wales is getting organised. If you are a letting agent or landlord carrying out management activity in Wales, ensure you get registered and undertake the training course. HMO licences can be easy to obtain or a little confusing depending on your local authority. In Wimbledon, South London, a management agent has been heavily fined recently because they flouted the laws and did not, despite being asked to apply for a licence and several warnings, get their licensing sorted. By law, the landlord of the 3-storey, 5-bedroom property rented by 5 unrelated tenants with shared kitchen and bathroom facilities should have applied to the council for it to be inspected and a licence issued. The resultant court case ended with a fine of £3,000 plus £170 victim surcharge and court costs of £1,346, totalling £4,516, all due to be paid in full within 28 days. The tenants are now eligible to apply for a first-tier tribunal for a rent repayment order, which can entitle them to up to 12 months of their rent back. An extreme case, but nevertheless a stark warning to anyone considering ignoring licensing rules within the HMO sector. 2 more landlords who fell foul of HMO licensing recently. A landlord in Oxford with a poorly maintained 6-bedroom property was fined £2,500. Amongst other things, the fire alarms were not in good working order. Meanwhile, a barrister who represented landlords was himself found to be a rogue landlord when his local council successfully prosecuted him and fined him £4,660 at Birmingham Magistrates Court after he pleaded guilty for failing to obtain an HMO licence and for breaching management regulations at the 3-storey property on Hunton Road in Erdington. It's not just HMO regulations a landlord must be aware of. Illegal conversions can carry hefty fines too. A landlord in Dagenham, East London, converted his house into 3 flats without obtaining the relevant planning permission. He was sentenced and fined £5,000 under Section 179 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. If he does not pay the £5,000 within 6 months, he will be jailed for 6 months. The kicker to this case is he must pay £129,755 back to his tenants. This is the rent he illegally took from them over their tenancy. Failure to pay the money within 3 months will result in 12 months in prison. Safety standards have to be paramount in landlords' minds. They are legally obliged to provide safe housing for tenants. For HMOs, you need working fire detection throughout the property, emergency lighting, fire doors and fire blankets. Other aspects that must not be ignored in any type of property are faulty electrical sockets, light switches, exposed wires throughout the property, broken kitchen cupboards and units, and holes in the floors, to name a few. In fact, 2 landlords in Birmingham had none of the above in their 3-floor property, and the City Council handed down a £13,000 fine plus costs. Regulations have been in place for many years, and rogue landlords are the exception these days rather than the norm. Local authorities are policing the industry far more than they used to, which is good for the overall industry because, let's face it, private landlords still have a somewhat tarnished reputation. Through good practices and a strong knowledge and adherence of the law, none of you watching are likely to fall foul of the regulations that are there to help us all. That's all from me this week. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye. Safety standards have to be paramount are now eligible. What am I doing?